going to be a general presentation regarding financial aid, and we'll do our very best to answer your questions. And we'll jump right into it. It's pretty short presentation, very general information. We're going to focus in on your questions and the important topics about applying effective today, October 1. So very simply, what is financial aid? Financial aid is just very simply money provided to students and their families to help pay for college. So that's what we're talking about when we refer to financial aid. What is the most important thing to know? Apply. Everyone should apply. Even if you think you will not qualify, don't disqualify yourself. Maybe you've been told that you won't qualify. Maybe you have a sibling who didn't qualify. If you still have that sibling in college and now you're in college, it could very well be now with 2 students in college. Maybe your sibling didn't qualify, but now maybe you will, since there are 2 students in college. There are a variety of reasons why you need to apply, even if you think you may not qualify. Maybe you think you will just have to take out student loans, or maybe just for scholarships. A lot of schools require the FAFSA and the application for any type of aid that you receive at a school. Very important. So Denise made reference to the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It opens today, October 1st, for the 21-22 aid year. So if you're applying for college now and intend to start college next fall, this is the application you want to complete, the 21-22 FAFSA that opened today. It is the very first step to applying for financial aid at any college or university. And you can apply at fafsa.ed.gov, effective today. We will be having Zoom workshops virtually on your campuses, and we will be around to help you to complete your FAFSA online and also on our Zoom workshops that we have, or lab that we have on the IVC website. Another option for you is the My Student Aid mobile app, another way to complete the FAFSA. So there's an app for everything now, right? So there's also one for the free application for federal student aid. For students who do not have a Social Security number, you may qualify for the California Dream application for state aid. So if you're unsure if you qualify, I encourage you to speak to your high school counselor or the college that you're going to. And that website is listed there, dream.csac.ca.gov. And we have a link to that also on our website, which I'll share with you at the end of this presentation. So the FAFSA, you will need to create what's known as a federal student aid identification. So we refer to that as the FSA ID, another acronym, right? It's basically a username and password that's going to help you or let you electronically sign your FAFSA. You and at least one parent will need one. It's very important to note that you will need different email addresses. You and your parents cannot share an email address when you sign up for an FSA ID. And it's also important not to use your high school email address, okay? Because generally you will no longer use that once you leave high school. So you need a personal email address. It can be Hotmail, Gmail, whatever email that you want, but it needs to stay with you after you leave high school. We have an FSA ID worksheet available on our website that will help you, kind of guide you through the process, and also provide you just a little cheat sheet to keep track of your information for your FSA ID, because you will continue to use this throughout the year and all the years that you apply for FAFSA for as long as you're going to college. We also have a FAFSA worksheet to kind of collect the information that you will need to complete the FAFSA. So if you're planning to attend one of our workshops and you want to make sure you have all of the information necessary to complete the FAFSA, it's a good idea to review this FAFSA worksheet so you know what information you will need to complete it. These worksheets are available on our website, and you may have already received them from your high school counselor. I did want to mention that male students between 18 and 25 are required to register with Selective Service in order to receive federal financial aid, and you can register using the FAFSA. Sometimes you have some special circumstances. You go to fill out the FAFSA, you're going to see that it's going to collect information for a certain tax year. And maybe that tax year is not reflective of the income you're receiving now. Maybe you have a parent who lost a job, or maybe the marital status of your parent has changed. Maybe for some reason you can't provide parental information. These are considered special circumstances, and adjustments can be made for these situations. However, they have to be done on a case-by-case basis by the college that you are going to. So very important to reach out to the colleges that you're considering attending to figure out how it is that they will make these special circumstances. For us, you can just contact a financial aid specialist and let them know what the situation is, and they will guide you through the process of making those adjustments necessary to complete that FAFSA. Important to know, need to apply early. March 2nd, you'll hear a lot about March 2nd. That is the Cal Grant deadline, but some schools have earlier deadlines for priority awarding. So for the Cal Grant, yes, March 2nd is fine, but maybe they have some institutional funding and they have an earlier deadline for that. It's important to know what those deadlines are for the schools that you're planning to attend. And remember, even if you're planning to attend school outside of the state, that is your intention, that is your plan. Just in case, list at least one California school, so that information will go to the California Student Aid Commission, and they will determine your eligibility for a Cal Grant, just in case you change your mind and decide to come to a California school. I also encourage you to put IVC on there. As Denise mentioned, we are here to help you even if you're going to another school. It is easier for us to help you if we have access to your FAFSA information. So you can put IVC on there, and then we will be able to assist you better if you have questions. Apply early to get the most money for college, because there's some funding that's awarded on a first come, first served basis. So the earlier you apply, the better. And remember that you do need to apply every year that you are in college. So what do you do after you complete the FAFSA? After you complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, you will get what's called a student aid report. And you want to review that and make sure that everything on there is correct. And if it isn't, you can go back into that FAFSA website and make any corrections. Be sure to follow up with the colleges you're considering to see what is needed to complete your financial aid file. I mentioned at the beginning that FAFSA is just the first step. There may be other requirements that you need to submit to the colleges that you are even thinking about attending, so they can let you know what you may qualify for there. Very important. And ask questions. Always ask. If you don't know, ask. We have on our website a group of financial aid TV videos. When they're like little YouTube videos, and they're pretty short, and they have a variety of different topics, including FAFSA demonstrations and FAFSA walkthroughs to assist you if you want to try to take or complete the FAFSA on your own. Most of these videos apply to any college. There is this link here, which is also available on our high school senior page, which I will share with you. Walks you through creating the FSA ID, walks through the FAFSA, and there's also a federal student aid website on YouTube that will help you with these processes as well. And last, we are here to help you. So we are not in the office. We are working out of our homes, but we are open Monday through Friday at 8 to 5. And you can reach us through email, by phone, And we have a virtual lab. So when the office is open, we actually have a physical lab that has 24 computers in it. We have a financial aid specialist always available to help students complete the FAFSA and complete their financial aid files at IBC. We have tried to replicate that by having a Zoom available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can click on that. I'll show you where it is located on our website. And we actually had our very first high school senior come in today. This student was on top of it. October 1, they're completing their FAFSA from Holtville. Okay, and we help that student. So you come in and you'll be put into a lobby area, and we will let students in one at a time to find out what your question is. And we have a financial aid specialist available at all times to help with those more complicated questions. So that is available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that is the link that I will show you where it is on our website. So to recap, first, you'll want to create that FSA ID for yourself and at least one parent. You'll want to complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. Okay, and if you need help, take a look at that FAFSA worksheet, collect your information, and attend one of the Zoom FAFSA workshops that will be offered at your school. Review your student aid report. Follow up with the college that you are attending or will plan to attend or even considering to see what else is needed to complete your financial aid file. So now we can open up for questions.
Great, thank you, Lisa and team. I know you have a couple others here, panelists that are kind of behind the scenes, ready to answer questions as well. Good to see all of you guys. So Lisa, we have a couple questions that students have turned in ahead of time, and they're often questions that that your staff probably get on the daily. But we'd like to ask essentially on behalf of others. But students, if you'd like to ask your very specific question, now would be a good time to do it. You can go to the question and answer tab at the bottom, type in the question, we'll moderate it on our team here at the Imperial County Office of Education. We'll ask those on your behalf to our financial aid team, Lisa and her team. So real quick, Lisa, we've had a couple questions that have come in over the last couple of weeks doing this, and some of them are related to financial aid. One of them was, is financial aid more or less depending on the college or university that I attend? So if I apply to IVC, does financial aid, do I get a certain amount? But if I apply to a super expensive private school, do I get more financial aid? How does that work?
It does depend on the school that you're going to and what types of aid that those schools participate in. So there's federal financial aid and things like the federal Pell Grant and work study and supplemental educational opportunity grants. And those amounts are generally the same no matter what school you're going to. There's state aid, like at the community colleges, we have the California College Promise Grant, which helps covers fees, and also the Cal Grant. And Cal Grant is generally lower at lower cost institutions like community colleges, and then those awards are higher at higher cost institutions like your CSUs and your UCs and your privates. Institutional funding can be just from huge amounts, just any amount you can possibly think of, right? The larger private schools, yes, they're more expensive, but often they have more institutional funding available as well. So don't think that it's completely out of reach. Apply and find out, right? You may be offered a better package than you thought possible because you just don't know until you actually apply. And then there's always scholarships, right? Or scholarships that are available from all kinds of sources. So they're not tied to the institution per se, or to the federal government, or to the state. They can be a business, they can be some nonprofit institution. So on our website, we have some search engines. So can you see my screen here?
I can, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the first place you want to go is to financial aid and scholarships, and there's different areas you can go to. Here's the Zoom.
Lisa, if I could jump in, you're at the Imperial Valley College webpage. So that's imperial.edu, and go ahead.
And then we go for students and financial aid and scholarships. So this is the Zoom virtual lab that I was talking about. So that's where you can go to that easily. But if you go to our scholarships page, IBC does have scholarships available, and from our foundation, you can get to the list of those here. But also there are various sites. One very popular one is called fastweb.org. And what these sites will do is collect information from you, a variety of information, and then they will match you up with a national database for just scholarships across the nation that are available to students every year. There are, millions of dollars that go unused because the students are not applying or not aware that these scholarships are available. So go out there and do these things. I wouldn't caution you, however, you shouldn't be paying for any of these. These sites that we have here are free. So if somebody is asking you to pay money up front in order to get a scholarship, that is likely a scam. If anybody's trying to collect money from you to help you fill out your FAFSA, that is a scam. Remember I told you what the acronym was for FAFSA, and that first F is for free. It is the free application for federal student aid. So you should not be paying any money to complete a FAFSA or to apply for a scholarship. Very important.
Good to know. So the F in FAFSA is free.
Yes.
Now, by the way, there's a couple students who've typed in questions online. Continue to do that. We'll get to those right now. And in fact, I think some of your team, Leticia and others, might be typing in answers. When you do that, please continue to do that. That'd be great. Go ahead and press that tab. I'm speaking to our panelists here. Press the tab of type answer, and then you can start answering it. Otherwise, if you answer it live, that's going to be me and Lisa. So I'll ask Lisa, some of the questions that have come in is, where do I apply to the Cal Grant? We're talking FAFSA, and so that's a federal financial aid. But then we've also talked about Cal Grant. Where would a California student, obviously here in Imperial County, where would they apply to for a Cal Grant?
You're using the FAFSA. That's the nice thing about the FAFSA. It is also your Cal Grant application. Unless you are what we call a dreamer, right? A student who does not have that Social Security, then there's California Dream Act application. But for most students, it is the FAFSA. Now, what creates a Cal Grant application is a combination of that FAFSA and your high school GPA. So what most of your high schools do, all of the high schools here in Imperial Valley, they send your GPAs to the California Student Aid Commission. And so what the commission does is they take a look at that GPA, they take a look at a FAFSA that has a California school listed on it, right? You have to have that California school on there. Those two items combine to make your Cal Grant application.
Great. Now you list, if I could ask a quick question, because some students are asking questions about, hey, if I list a couple colleges, where does the money go and how do I know which college I'm going to? So let me back up a little bit, because since October 1st is the first day that many of these students would have potentially opened up a FAFSA website and application. On the application, did I hear you say that you can identify to send the financial aid information to various different colleges and universities?
Yes, you can list up to 10 initially, and you can go in and make corrections after the fact and send to more. Okay. So you can list as many schools as you like, and none of those schools are going to get money right now. There's lots of steps that need to be followed in order to secure and complete your financial aid file. And then you need to enroll into that college, right? And register and go to classes before any money ever exchanges hands. So don't be afraid to put schools on there if you're just even thinking about them.
Great. I think that's essentially what the question was. Now, about the Cal Grant and specifically getting help from you folks. So when students apply for that financial aid and they list those schools, I guess this isn't a question, that's maybe more of a comment from me, is that I think it's important that they would list Imperial Valley College as one of their institutions, because then that allows your team to have full access to the data that they've put up and really be able to get behind the scenes and truly help a student. Obviously, it's all confidential. That's what your team has been hired to be. But and then for Cal Grant, do they have to have a California university listed there?
For Cal Grant, yes, they need to have, well, IBC is fine too.
So they'll
determine your eligibility, right? So that will work. But if you're thinking about a CSU, UC, put that on there as well, then they'll get that information too. So, and it's just any, but at least one California school, IBC is fine.
Right, and so that's a good point. So not to belabor this point, but if a particular student says to themselves, I just love the East Coast. I know for a fact I'm going to go to school in the East Coast. That's great, but it's helpful if they list Imperial Valley College as one of the institutions so that you all would have help, be able to help them as much as possible for that application package that may take them to another school. So great.
Right.
Okay, a couple other quick questions. And a student says, how do I start applying for financial aid? I'm going to graduate high school early in December, and then their plan is to start attending IVC in the winter or the spring semester. So which FAFSA application do they use?
They want to complete the 2021 FAFSA. So they'll want to do both, right? But also, if you're planning to graduate in June and go to summer school, you'll want to complete the 2021 FAFSA. That will help us determine your eligibility for the fee waiver and for any federal or state aid that you may be eligible for.
Thank you very much. I'm reading some of these questions. Does the California Governor's Grant allow for IVC tuition to be paid for completely? Is there any of that money that's left over from books in your experience?
So for the fee waiver, the California College Promise Grant does just cover the $46 per unit. But there are other federal aid programs like the Cal Grant and Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant that would be available for funding to help cover those expenses, transportation, home, books, room and board, other expenses, depending on what the student qualifies for. And yes, they could get other funding beyond the $46 per unit. It just depends on eligibility.
Great. And
you don't know if you don't apply.
Exactly. Students keep those questions coming in. We really, really appreciate you answering questions. We have some time now. This financial aid staff is available to answer questions live, but some questions, Lisa, might be a little bit more specific to a family situation, and they might feel, awkward typing in detailed financial family information into a chat box here on Zoom. So if a student had a specific question that they wanted to meet with in a confidential way with the financial aid staff, where would they go about doing that?
I think the best place to go is to our Zoom or to call the financial aid office, right? So then ask to speak to a specialist. So again, it's easy to get there, and you go to imperial.edu for students, financial aid and scholarships. And then here, you will find the Zoom link, right? There's also our email and our phone number listed there. And you can ask to speak to a financial aid specialist if you have specific questions regarding your financial aid. Maybe you're unsure, you can't provide parental information, and so we can guide you through that process. Or maybe you've done the FAFSA and you get a reject. Sometimes there are some errors which cause a reject, and you're not sure why that's happening. You want to call the financial aid office at the school you're going to, or you can give us a call as well. I did want to share with you our new high school seniors page that just opened up today. It's got a to-do list on there, what we talked about today. It's got the link to the FSA ID, a link to the worksheet that I shared. Same with the FAFSA and the FAFSA worksheet. There's a link to our DREAM Act page so that you can get started on the California DREAM Act application as well, if that's what you need to complete. And then all of our contact information, right? Our email address, our phone number, and our Zoom link.
Great. Now a couple questions come in. One question was, what does my GPA have to be to apply for financial aid?
It's different okay. So hopefully one of my specialists can come in here. What is the cutoff this year?
If they come in, they'd have to
You guys are
unmute
muted.
themselves.
Hi, this is Letty.
Hi,
The GPA for IDC, the requirement is 2.0.
No, for Cal Grant. For Cal Grant A. It's a little complicated because for different Cal Grants, it depends on the pool of students that apply. right? And so the cutoff will be different. But I believe, is it at 3.0 for a Cal Grant A?
I'm sorry, Lisa, I don't have that information with me.
Yes, Lisa, it is a 3.0 for a Cal Grant A.
Okay. So, and a Cal Grant A is a Cal Grant that can be used at a UC or a CSU. And although it doesn't pay at a California community college, it will be held for you. So let's say you want to eventually go to CSU or UC for your bachelor's degree, but you're going to put in a couple of years here at IVC. That Cal Grant A, you're determined eligible right now, and it'll be held on reserve for you. Okay. A Cal Grant B is a little different. It is also based on GPA, but it's also based on income. And on that one, you can get a stipend that'll help you with books and supplies while you're going to IVC, but will also cover that same amount as a Cal Grant A for your UC or CSU or your private school. And will be on, that larger amount will be on reserve for you until you finish your 2 years here at IVC.
Well, that's good to know. And so speaking of a little follow-up to that, speaking of GPAs, do higher GPAs get more aid?
Not for Cal Grant necessarily, but it could maybe for scholarships or institutional aid, right? So federal aid is not based on what we call merit or your GPA or that kind of information. That's based solely on income information. Once you get into school, you have to maintain a good GPA and complete your coursework because you could lose it. But when you're doing the initial application, no. Cal Grant does look at the GPA for your various Cal Grants, and then institutional aid and scholarships, like I said, they can do anything they want and award that money to whoever they want. So they can have more strict eligibility requirements. And in those cases, they could, a higher GPA could mean more money.
Great, thanks a lot. A couple other great questions that have come in. And I know you went over a lot of things in your presentation. Sometimes students come in a little bit later, so some of this may be repetitive, but one question was, what's the difference between the DREAM Act and FAFSA?
The DREAM Act application was developed for our dreamers, okay, sometimes referred to as AB 540. These are students who don't have a Social Security number, but did go to and graduate from a high school here in California and attended at least 3 years in combination with their high school and elementary school for at least 3 years. And in those situations, those students could qualify from state aid, not for any federal aid, but for state aid. So Cal Grant and the California College Promise Grant, which covers fees, you can apply for those using the California DREAM Act application. It's essentially the exact same information that you would fill out on a FAFSA, but it is on a different website, and we collect that information in the same manner, and we will determine your eligibility in the same manner, but only for state aid.
Okay, that makes sense because you mentioned earlier we asked a similar question, and the Cal Grant application is embedded within the FAFSA. It is the FAFSA, and so they pull it from that. So if you're not filling out the FAFSA because of you don't have a Social Security number for various reasons, then you would have this application. So that makes sense. And then once again, just to reiterate, applying for the Cal Grant A or any of those other acronyms, does that start with the FAFSA?
Yes. So that is the starting point for any federal or state aid. And as I mentioned, most institutions use it for institutional aid as well and scholarships. Institutions may have additional applications. This is why I mentioned that FAFSA is just that first step, right? That lets the school know, yes, I'm interested in receiving financial aid at your institution. They may have other programs available. They may have supplemental applications you need to complete. You may be selected for what's a process called verification, where you need to verify some of the information you provided on your FAFSA. A certain, maybe like 20% of applications are chosen for that. So that's more information you will need to send to the school. So it's very important to find out all those steps that you need to follow in order to get what's called a financial aid award or a financial aid package, right? It's an offer that the school will make to you. If you come to the school, this is what you would qualify for. And while most state schools, that's whatever you see there is probably what you're going to get. But at private institutions, you know, it is, if you're seeing a package and you're not quite satisfied with it, or you're wondering if there's more aid available, call them, call that school and talk to them and let them know that you're considering different institutions and that maybe a better package from that private school would slant you going to that school. It's because they're private, they have access to different funds that state schools do not. And so I highly encourage you, if you're planning to go to a private school, to make that phone call and ask for more money. You don't know if you don't ask.
You seem like you answered that as a parent, Lisa, so good for you. Now, you touched on the point about filling out applications. And once again, this isn't as much of a question as it is a statement from our office at Imperial County Office of Education, and probably all of us in education. We believe that the FAFSA application is for every single student who's going to higher education. It's important. You could be the student who has a nickel to their name, or a student who has $5 million to their name. That's not the point of the FAFSA application. We really want to have every single student. In fact, we make such a big deal out of it here in Imperial County that the Office of Higher Education and Adult Learning Office at ICOE actually has a campaign for high schools to compete against each other to see what's the highest percentage of high school seniors per school will fill out the FAFSA application. And so we really think that it's for absolutely everybody, for those points that you alluded to earlier. So it certainly would be a benefactor to receive financial aid packages, but it's also a way that schools can also award scholarships, which are merit-based and not necessarily based on need. So thank you very much. Now, there might be some other things that you guys have, but I really want to hear from many more students. So now would be a great time. We have a great financial aid staff team here available for us. They're also obviously available during their office hours. I think one of the questions was, hey, can I fill out the FAFSA on the weekends? I probably know where that's coming from. There's a lot of Zooming going on for high school seniors right now, and they might be a little fatigued Monday through Friday. But all the stuff obviously is online, is accessible on the weekends. However, your team is accessible Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning until 5, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And so if students want more information, even if they're not considering themselves as an IVC student, the best place to get financial aid information obviously would be FAFSA.gov, but also from the IVC webpage and the financial aid links that they have there. Here's a quick question came in. I'll read it live. How does money set aside affect your chances of receiving financial aid? So let's say a student has been saving up for college. They have a college fund, so to speak. Does that affect financial aid?
It can, because that's one of the things that is asked on the FAFSA. So if current checking account, current savings account is something that is required to be placed on the FAFSA, because what the FAFSA does is it tries to determine a family's ability to pay, right? So it does take into account things like family size, how many students are in college, income, and assets. So assets could be that money that's sitting in the checking account or the savings account put aside for school. And maybe if you own a business or you own property other than the home, never count the primary home, but other types of maybe real estate investments. So what it is attempting to do is to gauge the family's ability to pay. And this is why I said sometimes when you're looking at an income that is a year old, maybe it's no longer an accurate reflection of your family situation right now. And adjustments can be made for that. With this pandemic, there are several families who are in the situation of having lost their jobs, and they are no longer in the situation that they were in 2019. So it is a good time to call the financial aid office, or sometimes you can go on the website and determine how you can request what is called a professional judgment, making adjustments to the FAFSA to reflect the accurate situation that you're in right now, not where you were the year that the tax information was available.
Right now, you mentioned earlier we were talking about a student who may want to be attending IVC either during the winter session or maybe they want to graduate high school early and start taking classes at IVC in the spring. They would fill out the application, the FAFSA application for this year. And then we were talking earlier about today, October 1st, being the day that the application is open for the year 2021. Let me get that straight. 21, 22?
Yes.
Okay.
So you will see both. When you go in there, you will see the opportunity to do both the 2021, which is current aid year, and the 21-22.
And so
there's
a student would need to fill out a financial aid, a FAFSA application on an annual basis. Every time they go to higher education, this is an annual process that they would go about. Okay.
right, very important that you need to fill out the application every year. So every October 1, that's when you want to start that application.
Great. Hey, thank you, Lisa and the team. We're still here for a couple more questions. If any of the students would like to ask some questions, now would be a great time. I think we've asked and answered all of the questions that have been asked ahead of time. So feel free to answer some or ask some now live in the chat below. But just to let students know, we have been hosting here the Higher Ed Week. It's a virtual affair where at every hour, starting at 1 o'clock through 4 o'clock up until 5 o'clock, every single day, we have a different college or university, and in this opportunity, the financial aid team, that are going to be sharing information about their program, oftentimes their school and university, and taking questions live. So we're getting a little bit close to the 5 o'clock hour. So this session is getting close to being over. So feel free to ask a question real quick. But just to give people, since you're on the line right now, just to let people know, we have a great day's planned for tomorrow. I think if I remember the schedule correctly, we have tomorrow starting at 1 o'clock, we have Cal State University San Marcos. And then we have kind of a technical school, Learning Institute of Southern California. It's a barber school. And then we hit it at the very end with the top UC schools in essentially the country. UCLA and UC Berkeley will be at our 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock hours. Very top prestigious universities. And we're hoping that you can tune into tomorrow as well. But it seems like you're not done quite yet because there's a couple questions that have come out. Since it's filled out every year, would you still need your parents' income if you no longer financially depend on them? Let's say by the time you're in college after a year or so, you're living on your own, you're essentially kind of independent. Maybe you're over 18 years old. How do you answer that question, Lisa?
According to the federal government, you are not independent. You are dependent on your parents until you're 24. I mean, that's just the law. So it's, I think, intended to make it fair across the board, but you are considered a dependent of your parents until you're 24, even if you're living on your own, doing your own taxes, and they're not helping you. So you will be, there are some situations that we can do what's called a dependency override. So this is a situation where maybe you are no longer in contact with your parents for whatever reason. It needs to be a special, maybe you don't even weren't raised by your parent. Maybe you were raised by a grandparent and they never formally adopted you. And you can't provide parental information because you don't know where your parents are. Unfortunately, there are situations like this. And those are types of situations in which we can do what's called a dependency override. And again, this is something that has to be done by the school that you are attending. So you need to reach out to those schools to see how that can be done at the school that you're attending. But yeah, just the fact that you're on your own, you're over 18, your parents aren't providing information for, they don't have to give you any money to go to school, but they do need to give you that information on the FAFSA so that we can make the determination, and any school can make the determination of what you qualify for. So if your parents are saying, well, you're 18 and I don't need to provide information, your money for you anymore. That's true. However, they do need to provide the information, just the information on the FAFSA. And that does not obligate them to anything. It just helps the school make a determination of your eligibility. And if you are having any trouble with a parent that's not understanding that concept, I've spoken to parents before just to make clear what the situation is when they're providing that parental information on a FAFSA.
Some of those family situations are unique situations that could be answered in a confidential way when they zoom in. Alma, did you have a point?
Yes, sometimes parents do not want to give their information to the students, but they'll work with us on completing the FAFSA, and that's okay too. They don't have to give them the information. They can work with us together as a whole, and we can help them complete the FAFSA. We have a lot of the students, parents that do that.
Great, and your team is such a great resource, Alma and Lisa and Letty and all the team. I think I saw Aurelia pop in there for a sec as well. And you have a whole bunch of team that are just essentially, I love the concept of having office hours where it's an open Zoom. You just click on it and zoom in, and there'll be somebody there to greet you and kind of put you into the right direction and answer all your questions Monday through Friday. All those answers can be found at the Imperial Valley College website. Look for financial aid. All right, so I think we have a lot of our questions answered today. Leticia, did you have something else?
Yes, it's because Christopher Baez asked, and I accidentally clicked on the answer live. So his question was, do we have to apply for 21-22 year as well? Yes, Christopher, that's the FAFSA that it needs to be completed. If you graduate from high school, that will cover you the classes in the fall 2021. And if you would like to attend the summer session, you will need to complete the FAFSA 2021. Thank you.
2020 to 2021.
Yes.
Obviously, it may sound a little confusing, but we're talking in school years, right? So just in as much as you have a school year that you're familiar with going to high school and now college in the future, apply that same school year, and there's a FAFSA application associated with that year. And as long as you're in college, as long as you're going to a university or a college, you need to fill out that FAFSA application every single year. Maybe similar information, but it's a new tax year and new information you have to fill out new every year. And we encourage students to do that. Even if they don't receive it, it aligns you the ability to receive other types of benefits, scholarships and merits and other things. So we thank you. All right. I think my colleague from the Imperial County Office of Education, by the way, I don't know if I introduced myself. My name is Todd Evangelos, and I work at Imperial County Office of Education. And we have been hosting a higher ed week for the past 2 weeks, and the financial aid workshop. I've said this to our team, is I think it's the most important one because it's applicable to every single senior in Imperial County. So thank you to all of you from financial aid at IVC who've joined us today and continue to serve our students here in Imperial County. I'll throw it back to my colleague, Denise Gavinia.
Denise, I missed you this year. I missed going through all of them.
I missed all of you, but it's so great to see you all on the screen. Imperial County, those of you who are on the call with us, we have such an amazing, supportive, and knowledgeable team at Imperial Valley College, led by Lisa Seals. I cannot say enough good things about them. The financial aid process can be somewhat confusing. I know you have your school counselors who are supportive, but also remember you have the team at Imperial Valley College who actually work in conjunction with your school counselors to ensure that you and your family have the support that you need, not only to fill out your application, but when you get your information back. Sometimes that information is a little bit confusing as well. So don't hesitate. If you have a question, if you need more clarification on something, reach out to our colleagues and friends at Imperial Valley College, as well as your local school counselors. I know as a county, workshops will be happening to provide that support to you and your family. So please be on the lookout for that. But I don't want to take up any more time. I want to tell you all at IVC how much we appreciate your partnership, your continued support. You all are amazing. I could just go on and on forever talking about how awesome you guys are. So thank you so much for doing this second session. Even Todd's giving us the claps and the thumbs up because we know it's true. So I can't thank you enough, all of you, for joining us on the call today, for joining us at Higher Ed Week 2 times. That's how important we feel financial aid information is for our community. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Zoom and at those workshops. So thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise.